Welcome back to the show. Today we have got a bunch of stories about Valve. That is awesome for a number of reasons. Valve stories are fun, and it means we get to use Knife Gabe in the video thumbnail. One of our great joys. A few numbers to guide us through. Number 1, 7 days. That is how long that you'll be able to rent Counter-Strike 2 skins under a new policy that is designed to wipe out a grey market, while of course also making Valve a lot more money from loot boxes. I suppose I do kind of imagine, what if you logged into Diablo 4 one day to find out that Blizzard would rent you a cosmetic in return for some IRL money? Yeah, that's an interesting one. The next number is 0. That is how many games you can transfer in your Steam library to a loved one in your will. Bit of an odd one, but yes, that appeared as a story. The third number, 14%. That is the average price increase that some gamers are seeing because of currency problems that are all down to Steam's market structure basically failing customers. And it is something that is, especially in some regions like say Poland, it is really a problem for audiences. The next number, and the final for today's video, is 100 plus, because that is how many leaks there now have been for Valve's new in-production title, Deadlock, even as the company are acknowledging none of those leaks publicly, which is absolutely fascinating. And finally, let's pay the bills from a brand that we've selected and have sponsored today's video. Now, there's another story that caught my mind lately, and it's this. Microsoft's upcoming Windows feature with Copilot Plus that will screenshot your activity every few seconds so that you can AI rewind to see what you've done in the past, which seems like a privacy nightmare and also, well, I think I know what we're all thinking. But I actually found out via today's sponsor, ground.news/Bellular, that right now the UK is actually looking into the feature. Ground is an absolute superpower for navigating the world. And to take today's story, right? I can see that it was broken by PC Gamer, then it was covered by The Sun, BBC, Time, and a bunch of other outlets. I can actually then compare the headlines to see how outlets of different political leanings are actually taking the story. And the examples are these, like UK Watchdog probes Microsoft AI screenshotting everything on your screen. Another is Microsoft Copilot Plus recall feature is a privacy nightmare. And you can actually see, comparing the headlines, that whether left, right, or center, just about nobody thinks this is good, which I think is heartening. And I love how Ground just presents the information in a way that is actionable. I don't miss news because of my own biases or because I just didn't happen to research on a certain site. They make it easy and understandable. I even found this absolute banger of a headline. Ohio State commencement speaker says he took psychedelics to write Bitcoin speech, which, I mean, hey, the shoe fits on that one. But look, I care about the state of things. I know in the past there's times I've been misled by assuming a headline, right? Or maybe a TLDR in a tweet. What Ground does is it gives me the tools so that I can work out what's going on, I can see the stories that are happening, and I can jump into different outlets for further reading. And at ground.news/Bellular, you can get started today. Their subscriptions actually start at less than $1 a month, or you can go for the Vantage plan, which is all of the features. It's what I use. And my link gets you 40% off. And again, that link is ground.news/Bellular for 40% off. They're awesome. I think we've got a unified mission with them. So if you like our kind of stuff, I think you'll appreciate their service as well. Okay, loot boxes, this is a wild one. And certainly, while Valve have got, I think, amongst audiences, a fantastic reputation, loads of consumer-friendly things like the refund policy, obviously, their role in loot boxes is one that definitely changed a lot of things in the industry. So, during 2023, CSGO Case Tracker estimates that they have made nearly $1 billion from CSGO alone from loot box sales. And as of May 23rd, Valve have found a new and exciting way to make loot boxes worse. So, renting skins. Imagine spending your real money to get a skin in a game, but only for a limited amount of time. So let me read the marketing copy. Calling all Kilowatt Collection fans. Now, when you open a Kilowatt case with a key, you'll be given the option to rent the whole collection for a week, excluding the rare special item instead of keeping a single item. You can play with the weapons as much as you like during that week, but they cannot be modified by stickers or name tags. And that's fascinating. For the cost of $3.50, you can either get one random skin from a crate permanently, or you can temporarily use every skin in the box other than, of course, the big rare one. So basically, it's either get really lucky with your gacha pulls, or you basically get to rent your op skin, which is certainly odd. And to lay it all out clearly, this is paying for a set of digital skins that you can only keep for 1 week. And that means that this may as well be a subscription model where every single case is a subscription, right? It's either, do you want to buy the game and you'll own it forever on Game Pass, or would you like to keep a subscription going and temporarily be able to, take any of this great library? It's a little bit like that, and it's kind of funky. Obviously, value is in the eye of the beholder, but I think to many, this is a pretty egregious waste of money. Putting money into a subscription service that basically is you renting a game or getting access to a license, via Game Pass or something, that's something we can understand. Like, yes, that money is being sort of thrown into the big money burner, right? And the company is just getting pure profit off that, and you don't own something at the end of the day, but what you do get is access to an experience, and I think people value that experience enough that the idea of paying for a subscription to get temporary or time-limited access to that kind of thing makes sense. For premium skins, though, that I think is different. That does feel like a bit of a line has been crossed. The reason why, though, is actually really clear. Again, you got to remember, Valve, they've always had that strong libertarian bent, and this is basically them responding to a market demand. There are, in fact, and I didn't know this before because I'm not deeply embedded in that community, but there are multiple websites that allow users to sign up and rent skins from other players. So yes, you heard that right. The renting of skins already happens, but it happens through the gray market. Now, typically those gray market sites are framing it as them fulfilling a need, fulfilling a clear market demand. People want a specific skin from a tournament, or maybe people want to test a skin out before they shell out the cash to buy it, right? So they use one of these third-party sites that effectively lets them rent the skin. And this is basically Valve saying, okay, well, we are just going to do that ourselves and we will make the money. And in many ways, it's not via gray market. There are probably then more consumer protections, and because it's official, you sort of know what you're doing. Maybe less risk for shady behavior, but it is obviously them just looking at the secondary market and saying, okay, well, I actually think we can make a whole bunch more money off this. In the same way that Blizzard Entertainment or CCP, the developers of EVE Online, whenever they did the likes of WoW Token and Plex, or perhaps Cred in the now dead game WildStar, yes, it is making sure that gold buying isn't happening as much on the grey market that's against terms of service. We all know that they're doing it to earn money. But ultimately here, what is this? This is Valve doing it themselves. Ultimately, the player will own nothing. What do you think about that? Is that too far? Are you okay with this being done? Do you think basically, well, it's up to the consumer demand? If they want this, Valve is a company, they're more with it, they're well within their rights to provide a service that there is, people have proven market demand for. Or do you think that, like how Valve unleashed loot boxes, and then quite a lot of other companies then went and ran pretty far with those loot boxes, do you think this is another example of a bad precedent? Could you see this dovetailing into maybe Blizzard making it so that whenever you purchase the premium battle pass that you get to rent some skins or something like that? Like, do you think that could happen? Let me know. Our next story, well, what happens if you run out of Steam in the big way? So the real topic of whether you own something or not, and ultimately you do not own your Steam library, right? You just license your Steam library from Valve. And obviously if you get a ban, if your Steam account is banned, you lose access to your games, you'll be profoundly aware that, you just licensed that stuff from Valve and now you don't have that anymore. Now, this has been highlighted by a Reset Era user called Delete12345, so obviously on a burner account, who decided to check in with Steam support on what would happen to their Steam account if they were to pass it on in their written will. So that's basically the point. If I croak, can I give, can from father to son a Steam account pass? Or the games in the account? And they said, unfortunately, Steam accounts and games are non-transferable. Steam support can't provide someone else with access to the account or merge its contents with another account. I regret to inform you, your Steam account cannot be transferred via a will. And all this does kind of make sense. Steam does not hide this in their terms and conditions. Everything that you buy or earn is licensed to you and only you. do. But it does kind of raise the question then on, does there need to be a reassessment around digital rights for products going forward, especially as this will just become more and more of an issue. I mean, in theory, there is no difference between a library of game discs or a Steam library for many people, other than this policy won't let them be transferred. So should we have a right that would supersede that policy, meaning that that is a non-legally enforceable policy? Well, ultimately, because I think more consumer protections and more consumer rights are good, yes, it should be that. Okay, next then. Polish currency problems. Right, so this has been shared with me in email. I've since seen this be talked about in quite a few places, and this is something that will be impacting people viewing this very video. So, Steam sets a general currency rate for all regions, and they try to balance that with the cost of living in each country and the impact of people with a VPN who can just region hop to that country for a cheap key. Now, that's quite tricky because it does mean somebody in a more well-off country being able to VPN into your country and buy games priced for you when you are in a country with a differently scaled economy. Well, because those people do that, prices in your region are now higher because they need to compensate for that, meaning that you in the less developed economy are now going to be suffering because of basically, people in larger economies, obviously regardless of their own personal financial circumstances, being able to VPN over. So it's an interesting problem. Video games and digital products are global. The currencies that they are purchased with are not global. How do we deal with this? And I suppose this is probably where a lot of the crypto people will come in and say, hello, we're the solution to this problem. But anyway, let's not get into that rabbit hole. So in theory, what they need to do is they need to balance the needs of the developer, the audiences, and then the platform holder so that everybody is treated fairly. But the problem is, just because something was fair at one point doesn't mean it stayed that way. So here is basically a look at currency, and you can see that it's been a tumultuous enough time for the Polish zloty, and using GBP, where I'm from, I understand what it's like. We had a few things that changed the value of our currency. Definitely made a holiday to the States more expensive. Anyway, since the market standard is, of course, the American dollar, if something is weak against the dollar in 2022 and has then become stronger in price, well, in theory, there should be a change in the prices on Steam. But instead, while we have covered mass market changes of the LATAM USD and MENA or MENA USD that are basically designed to curb widespread issues, there are individual problems that are slipping through the net here, like with the Polish zlotys. Now, from Valve's perspective, if they move too quickly to correct things, then that would set an expectation that they will be very reactive for all currencies, all regions, and this is a major thing they'll be doing. But of course, what this means is that in Poland, well, above you can see that this is a specific edge case that has resulted in a massive price discrepancy that has now been highlighted by a 20,000 user-strong petition from gamers in the country. Here's what they explain. Factorio was one of the main examples that highlights the problem. In Poland, the game costs 160 zloty, but in Germany, it costs 32 euros, which is 137 zloty at the current exchange rate. Poles will have to pay 347 zloty for Forza Motorsports, while the exact game costs 69.99 euro, which is approximately 299.9 zloty. So basically what this has done is it's meant that the recommended pricing creates a difference of nearly 14% to the disadvantage of the Polish zloty. So effectively, as an overall group, they're paying more than they should. So imagine an anti-coupon code essentially being placed on your entire Steam store because of the particulars of how the pricing is managed. Now, the problem here is that on an individual level, publishers and developers don't have knowledge or experience always to know if they are being fair here in pricing. So what they do is they rely on Steam, because Steam are the people who set the recommended numbers. Okay? But the problem is, if the recommended numbers no longer actually reflect what's going on with the currencies, then you have a problem. And really, this is a more oblique version of the monopoly arguments, where Steam are setting up a market practice and then failing to actually acknowledge that that practice is not working in every region. So ultimately here, look, I hope that this pressure from Polish gamers makes Valve realize that actually, in order to be fair to their customers, I mean, look, Gabes says piracy is a service problem. Well, this is a great example. The particulars of how Valve are running their service are leading to games, being overpriced for people in Poland. That is a problem with their service, and that will lead to piracy. So therefore stands to reason that fixing this problem will discourage piracy, give consumers, a more fair shake of the stick, and ultimately be good. I mean, it's just economically inefficient when you have stupid shit like this going on. Next then, Valve not acknowledging their own game. This is weird. So, Deadlock, yes, Battlestar Galactica Deadlock, a 7 out of 10 that I love to death, is in fact not the new Valve game. It is a project called Deadlock. Now over 90 Deadlock videos have leaked onto the internet, and it's interesting because we then get to see how does a company respond, or in this case, not respond. It's very well known that Valve just do not have to operate like any other company. They're privately owned, and they very much are what you would call an opinionated company. They get to do what they think. So, this has been interesting. They can be silent for a year and then suddenly drop Counter-Strike 2 on an unsuspecting audience. They still do have to test games before they give them to the public, especially multiplayer games. And that's why, last week, we saw over 100 plus distinct videos, not just the same one being, mirrored. No, 100 plus distinct videos for a game called Deadlock, their latest in-development project. So, let's go. This was first captured by the account Gabe Follower. Let's read. Deadlock, next Valve game, previously known as Neon Prime Citadel. Competitive, third-person, hero-based shooter. 6v6 battling on a huge map with 4 lanes, usable abilities and items, tower defense mechanics, fantasy setting mixed with steampunk, magicians, weird creatures and robots, fast travel using floating rails similar to BioShock Infinite, basically fast-paced, interesting ADHD gameplay, combination of Dota 2, Team Fortress 2, Overwatch, Valorant, Smite, Orcs Must Die, hero design pretty much inspired by the Dota universe, main map references modern steampunk European cities, a little bit like Half-Life. Initially, game had sci-fi elements inspired by Half-Life and Portal, but after bad feedback, dev team decided to focus on fantasy. I mean, you could imagine you're doing a big multiplayer game like this, and you then have the vibes of City 17, and to people they just say, hey, this is kind of plain and grey and not fun, which of course would make sense. A game like this does not have the same goals that, say, the art direction of Half-Life 1 and 2 would have had. So, looking at that, honestly, I think that could be kind of cool. And what's followed that is a tide of character art, models, map layouts, gameplay footage, and way more things about this game. I mean, people even seemingly found a Steam page with player numbers all about these tests. But of course, Valve are saying nothing publicly, which makes sense. They don't have to say anything. And when Valve do new games, they actually do try to be experimental. I mean, they worked with one of the most respected card game designers of all time to come up with Artifact. Artifact obviously flopped, but it really was trying to be a damn good card game. You then have Dota Underlords, a quick sort of push to get into the auto-battler genre, but it never really got outside of its niche. Now though, another competitive shooter, and one that's honestly amazing in its positioning, because it's appealing to LoL, it's appealing to Dota, it's appealing to Valorant, it's appealing to Overwatch, it's likely going to have, of course, its twang of Valve. I mean, they are playing with a lot of things that we know are gamer crack. Taking a look at the leaks, which, look, if we reproduce them here, there's just every chance that we get slammed. So, we'll talk about them though. Now, the art is remixing TF2 assets and stuff. It's not fully fleshed out. This is very much stuff that is in production, but I think it does show a feel. Obviously, Valve wants some feedback there. It's far too early, I mean, for them to publish this game in any sort of like early access way. But the thing is, if they acknowledge this publicly, then there's an implicit commitment to the direction that they're testing right now. And that does mean the play here is very simple. Acknowledge nothing, keep on privately testing, truck on, and if Deadlock is going to be a thing that comes out, then they talk about it publicly, and they just keep the Valve mystique. Because guess what? If they just don't talk about this, guess who will talk about this? Everyone else, especially as more things leak out. They don't really need to worry unless, of course, expectations then start to diverge from what they think can deliver, in which case the arithmetic, the sort of game theory of it changes a little bit, and then the expected value of Valve speaking out would be higher, and they would have that incentive. So, that is it. A number of stories about Valve. Let us hope that, of course, our friends in Poland end up getting a better time with their prices on Steam, and that something better there is going on. And certainly, look, Valve, come on, man. Renting, cosmetics, what's going on? And it's rough because if Valve do it, you know, other people might try to do it too. Now look, the idea of maybe renting a premium cosmetic, perhaps by using something you earn in-game, maybe that is a discussion that we could have that is a bit more reasonable. But yeah, as it stands, frankly, I'm just uncomfortable with it. Let me know though, are you comfortable or not? You can check out yesterday's video. There will be another video on the channel tomorrow. So thank you to you for watching. Thanks to today's sponsor for supporting our team. With that said, thanks. I'll see you next time.